The introduction. It was an unremarkable Tuesday morning in the small town of Briarwood, where the air was tinged with the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant hum of cicadas echoed through the sun-dappled streets. The tranquility of the day was punctuated only by the occasional barking of a dog and the sounds of children playing in their front yards. However, beneath this seemingly idyllic facade, something sinister lurked in the shadows, waiting for its moment to emerge. At precisely 45 a.m., a 911 call pierced the mundanity. A frantic voice rattled off cryptic details of a neighbor's lifeless body discovered in the backyard, an event that would soon unravel the fabric of this tight-knit community. The yellow crime scene tape unfurled like a warning flag, encompassing the modest white picket fence that had stood for decades, a guardian to secrets both old and new. Detectives arrived to find the scene meticulously preserved. Vibrant flower beds sprawled beside a gravel path, swaying gently in the summer breeze with an eerie calmness. Neighbors stood at a distance, their eyes wide, whispering among themselves as anticipation turned to dread. Who could do such a thing in this serene town, where everyone knew each other by name? As forensic teams moved in, the reality of violence settled heavily in the air, a sharp contrast to the earlier innocence of morning. The investigation would soon reveal layers of family secrets, long-held grudges, and hidden truths. It wasn't just a murder. It was a glimpse into the lies that sometimes fester beneath the surface of suburban life. The victim. The victim was identified as 47-year-old Margaret Reynolds, a beloved local school teacher known for her dedication and warmth. She had been part of the Briarwood community for over 2 decades, nurturing generations of children within the walls of Maplewood Elementary. As news of her death spread, the shock rippled through the town like a sudden summer storm. Margaret was the kind of person who had once organized bake sales and community fundraisers, her laughter a familiar sound across neighborhood gatherings. Yet, beneath the smiles and the cheerful facade, those who knew her well sensed that not everything was as harmonious as it appeared. Friendships were strained, and hushed whispers about a troubled marriage surfaced in the conversations of neighbors who didn't wish to speak ill of the dead. The initial investigation revealed that Margaret lived with her husband, Peter Reynolds, an enigma whose own shadow was longer than hers. He was known for his reclusive demeanor, often seen tending to his workshop behind their home, meticulously building furniture and playing the role of the quiet artist. As detectives subtly probed, information trickled in about unresolved marital tensions. Would that silence shatter in the wake of such horror? Forensic teams meticulously cataloged the crime scene. Margaret lay surrounded by the dying blooms of late summer, petals scattered as if nature mourned her tragic fate. Investigators pressed further, searching for any shard of evidence that might illuminate the darkness enveloping the truth behind her untimely death. Now felt ominous, its secrets waiting to unravel one by one. The crime scene. The blue and yellow tape cordoned off the backyard as forensic investigators moved with precision, their gloved hands delicately preserving the evidence scattered throughout the scene. Margaret Reynolds lay face down on the cool grass, surrounded by lush greenery that starkly contrasted the violence that had just unfolded. An unsettling stillness filled the air, broken only by the distant chatter of bewildered neighbors who huddled together, seeking solace in shared confusion. Detectives combed through the area methodically, their eyes trained to capture every detail. Brightly colored garden tools rested beside Margaret's motionless form. A shovel, seemingly innocuous, caught the sunlight, as if it were a beacon of the horror, intertwined with domesticity. Nearby, peculiar scuff marks marred the once immaculate path leading to the home, hints that a struggle may have taken place, a thought that made the air tense with the weight of possibility. Blood spatter patterns were analyzed with clinical precision, evidence that would provide crucial insights. The lack of defensive wounds suggested a sense of betrayal. Margaret hadn't seen her attacker coming. As detectives looked for signs of forced entry, they pondered the relationships surrounding Margaret. Would they find a stranger in the shadows, or the ghost of a loved one who turned lethal? Meanwhile, the sun climbed higher, casting a harsh light on the morbidity of the scene. What once was a whimsical space for summer barbecues now turned into a tableau of sorrow, a lingering reminder that there was nothing more profound than a life extinguished unexpectedly. The layers of Margaret's existence, the teacher, the wife, the neighbor, would all come under scrutiny in the search for justice. The early investigation. As twilight fell over Briarwood, the rhythmic pulse of life slowly began to fade, giving way to an uneasy stillness. Inside the local police precinct, detectives huddled around a well-worn table strewn with notes and photographs of Margaret Reynolds, a visual timeline of her life and the events leading to her tragic end. They were acutely aware that every detail mattered. The path to the truth lay hidden in the quiet moments, the nuances of relationships that framed Margaret's world. Sarah Mitchell, the lead investigator, sorted through witness statements. One neighbor recounted the sounds of an argument emanating from the Reynolds home just days prior, a cacophony that sent chills through the usually peaceful neighborhood. The words slipped through the air like whispers of a tempest just beneath the surface, hinting at deeper troubles within the seemingly picture-perfect marriage. Peter Reynolds was brought in for questioning. He arrived looking disheveled, his eyes unusually bloodshot, the weight of grief palpable in his demeanor. When questioned about the events leading to Margaret's death, he answered calmly but vaguely, his alibi a fabric of uncertainty. Sarah noted the slight tremor in his hands and questioned whether the facade he presented was hiding something darker. Meanwhile, Margaret's closest friends were interviewed. Each expressed shock, tears cascading down their cheeks as they recalled laughter and shared moments. Yet, as they spoke, their words weaved an intricate tapestry. Truths emerged that hinted at secrets buried beneath the surface. There were hushed tones regarding Margaret's growing discontent with her marriage and whispers of a friendship with another man, intertwining lives that now stood at the brink of scrutiny. The investigation was only just beginning, with each layer of Margaret's life revealing strands of intricacy that begged for closer examination. As the night wore on, the detectives understood that they were not merely unearthing a crime. They were unpacking the tangled web of human emotion. The dead ends. As the days slipped into the unrelenting rhythm of the investigation, frustration grew palpably among detectives. Their meticulous exploration of every lead was akin to traversing a labyrinth with no exit in sight. Each piece of evidence collected would inevitably spark interest, only to fizzle out like embers losing their glow. The initial excitement of scrutiny had transformed into a grueling routine through which they sifted, hoping for the spark of truth. Detective Sarah Mitchell sat at her desk, darkness invading the once cheerful office, illuminated only by the glow of her computer screen. Files on her desk chronicled all leads, interviews. And theories, a grim stack of potential, yet unrealized. She had hoped to find solace in the consistent patterns of human behavior, but what she encountered was painfully unpredictable. Investigations led them to Peter Reynolds, who, despite his withdrawn nature, had garnered sympathy from the community. As he continued to present a facade of mourning, alibi witnesses came forward, each confirming his presence at the local apparent haven, away from prying eyes during the crucial hours surrounding Margaret's death. The atmosphere of doubt thickened. His unremarkable exterior possibly harbor a mind capable of such violence. The lead about Margaret's supposed affair with a co-worker also dwindled as the friend was questioned. His flustered insistence on platonic friendship was tight-lipped, layers of uneventful conversations encapsulated behind their shared boundary. The detectives soon realized this would not be the smoking gun they had hoped for. Additionally, the forensic analysis returned without definitive conclusions. The muddled blood spatter had given them potential theories, but no concrete affirmation. Investigators pored over timelines and alibis that led to disillusionment. The hope of clarity dwindled as leads became corroded by ambiguity, their sense of purpose evolving in uncharted territory. As they pressed on, an insidious thought took hold. What if the answers were hidden among the very people who mourned the loudest, concealed beneath a facade of grief? The pursuit of justice was far from over, yet each step into darkness led them deeper into a web of personal betrayals and secrets they couldn't yet uncover. A break in the case. As the investigation dragged into its third week, a glimmer of hope finally pierced through the pervasive fog of uncertainty. It began with a routine canvassing of the neighborhood, an exercise that had yielded little more than resigned shrugs and half-hearted gossip, until that fateful evening when Detective Sarah Mitchell crossed paths with an elderly woman named Mrs. Hargrove. From her porch, she watched the world unfold, a sentinel of the neighborhood's quiet stories. With the warmth of fading daylight, Mrs. Hargrove's eyes sparked with unexpected clarity as she recounted her observations from that fateful night. She had heard commotion, specifically the raised voices of a man and a woman venting their frustrations across the yard. It didn't sound like a husband and wife having a friendly chat, she remarked, her gaze piercing through the shadows of years past. Intrigued, Sarah probed for details, and Mrs. Hargrove described seeing a figure near the fence, cloaked in black, someone who had fled once their eyes met. Encouraged, the detective seized upon Mrs. Hargrove's information, scrutinizing the time. The inconsistencies around Peter Reynolds' alibi began to surface, as the drinking session reported by bar patrons wasn't as near to the hour of the crime as first believed. This inconsistency ignited fresh leads and reignited their pursuit of Peter's whereabouts. Simultaneously, the forensic team conducted a comprehensive reevaluation of Margaret's phone record. They uncovered exchanges with a number that hadn't appeared in previous statements, text messages, filled with heated exchanges that hinted at betrayal and confrontation. Further analysis revealed the most startling revelation. The number belonged to an individual previously ignored in the investigation. A man named Derek Thompson, a recent addition to the Maplewood teaching staff. With the pieces of this intricate puzzle now aligning, Sarah and her team prepared to confront Derek, their understanding of the case evolving with the new insights. It was the first sign of meaningful progress, but it also raised the unsettling question. What truly lay at the core of the shattered relationships at the heart of Briarwood? The suspect, Derek Thompson, stood in stark contrast to the tranquil surroundings of Briarwood. The new teacher was in his early 30s, with a boyish charm that often turned the heads of parents and peers alike. He had ingratiated himself quickly into the community, and Margaret had welcomed him as a breath of fresh air among her colleagues. But it was this very bond that now painted him as a suspect. The proverbial second act in a tragedy steeped in betrayal and passion. Sarah Mitchell and her partner arrived at the modest rental home where Derek lived, the scent of fresh paint wafting through the open windows. As they knocked, a flicker of surprise crossed Derek's face when he realized the nature of their visit. He invited them inside, his demeanor oscillating between warmth and unreadable tension. The interrogation room felt almost suffocating as they laid out their case. Sarah examined every breath he took, every twitch of his fingers, keenly aware that this was not just an inquiry. It was a psychological chess game. She began with small talk, easing into the conversation about Margaret's life, watching for the initial reaction. When she mentioned the arguments they believed had transpired, Derek's expression hardened, revealing the crack beneath his courteous exterior. Gradually, as Sarah pivoted to the text messages uncovered during their investigation, she noted Derek's defensive posture. His responses became clipped, arms crossing tightly over his chest, a physical barrier that contrasted the openness he had exhibited moments earlier. "I was just a mentor," he insisted, but the conviction in his voice waned with each syllable. Furthermore, the police had dug deeper into his background. Derek had left his last teaching position under vague circumstances, hinted at in the whispers of old colleagues who feared reprisal. As they pushed for clarity, they found no refuge in his stories, leading to a deadlock of denials and ambiguity that blurred the lines between innocence and guilt. Tension hung in the air as Sarah considered the ramifications of Derek's involvement in this unfolding drama. Was he merely a confidant caught in the crossfire of emotions? Or was he the catalyst for Margaret's demise? The deeper they delved, the more intertwined each person became in this web of lies and fractured relationship suspect, harboring their own secrets. The trial, as the courtroom doors swung open, a heavy silence enveloped the audience packed within. The trial of Derek Thompson had finally begun, drawing the attention of a community on edge. Locals filled the benches, whispering in hushed tones, while friends of the deceased sat stiffly, their eyes filled with a mix of grief and anticipation. For many, the proceedings represented not just justice for Margaret Reynolds, but the desire for healing in a fractured town. Sarah Mitchell prepared to testify, her heart racing as she recalled the myriad of evidence that led them here. The courtroom walls, painted a muted gray, echoed the tension in the room, amplifying the stakes as the prosecutor laid out the case against Derek. The meticulously gathered evidence from the trail of text messages to eyewitness accounts painted a picture of a man caught in a storm of jealousy and rage. Derek's defense attorney was relentless, hammering away at the state's claims with pointed questions that sought to uphold hope in the face of mounting odds. They dissected the forensic evidence, questioning the validity of eyewitness accounts and sowing seeds of doubt about Derek's true involvement painting him instead as a victim of circumstance. This siege on the prosecution's case made every heartbeat in the room thrum with tension. Each pause an encouragement for potential allies to stand in Derek's corner. As testimonies unfolded over several days, Sarah's recollection of her initial findings proved critical, binding the threads of evidential narratives together. Friends took the stand, their voices quavering as they spoke of Margaret's struggles. Their testimonies a haunting reminder that behind the idyllic suburban life lay shadows, too dark to ignore. With each piece of evidence and each emotional blow, the atmosphere hung thick with unresolved anger and sorrow. The climax of the trial loomed closer as closing statements approached. Families were poised at the edge of decision, eager for vindication, yet apprehensive of the final verdict that would forever alter their lives. Derek's fate swung delicately, a mirror reflecting the fractures of trust that had emerged and now cropped. Silence overtook the room when the jury's decision was finally announced. A moment finally bespeaking the undeniable truth behind the tragedy conclusion, now woven into the very fabric of their lives. The aftermath. In the weeks following the trial, Briarwood felt transformed, marked by an indelible scar that altered its landscape forever. The once close-knit community was fractured, haunted by the echoes of a disruption that left relationships strained and alliances questioned. Debates and discussions lingered in the air, objects of murmured exchanges at the grocery store and in dimly lit living rooms. People shifted uncomfortably. The very ground they once stood on felt rugged and unfamiliar. Derek Thompson was convicted, and though the verdict brought an immediate sense of relief to many, particularly to Margaret's family, there remained an unsettling vacancy. Creditors of justice weighed more heavily on those acquainted with the fallout of Margaret's murder. For her friends, the wounds ran deeper. Images of laughter and warmth now clashed against the stark reality of abrupt loss. Grief had turned to anger, leaving behind unresolved feelings. Sarah, whose role in the investigation had spanned weeks of painstaking dedication, found respite in visiting Margaret's memorial, a vibrant collection of flowers and handwritten notes outside Maplewood Elementary. As she traced her fingers over the delicate petals, she felt the weight of responsibility pulse through her. This was not just about solving a crime, it was about piecing together a life that had touched many. As the seasons changed, the town squared its shoulders and wrestled with the new normal. Support groups formed. People poured their sorrows into shared stories, forging connections amid the pain. They remembered Margaret not only for the tragedy surrounding her death, but for the joy she had imparted in the lives of her students. The legacy she left behind extended beyond the tragedy, a history of love and compassion that resonated within the hearts of those she had influenced. Conversations lingered in the corners of the community about where to go from here. Briarwood slowly began to rebuild, to reassess its values, to reforge relationships that had seemingly dissolved. Trust was not easily regained, but a shared understanding began to bloom from the Ashiza recognition that darkness could not extinguish the light Margaret had embodied. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced upon the earth, Briarwood stood as both a witness and a testament to resilience in the face of tragedy, embarking on a journey toward renewal. Reflection. As the first echoes of spring approached Briarwood, the town finally began to breathe again. The vibrant colors of the season contrasted sharply with the grief that had overshadowed the community for so long. Sarah Mitchell found herself wandering through its streets, immersed in a reflective haze. Each step felt laden with the memories of victims and survivors, alike and profound lessons gleaned from the tumultuous journey the town had endured. In quiet moments, she grappled with the broader implications of her work. Was justice truly served in a society that sometimes blurred the lines between right and wrong? With each case, she had learned that crime extends beyond analysis. It lies in emotions, motivations, and the human condition itself. Margaret's death had cascaded through Briarwood, transforming perspectives and relationships among those still standing. Sarah yearned for the town to find closure, and not just for the case, but for the ripple effects of trauma. As she stood at the memorial site, the spirit of Margaret Reynolds lingered in the air, whispers of hope intermingling with sorrow. Their community now possessed an opportunity for growth, anchored in collective remembrance and the resolute determination to honor a life that had touched so many. As the sun dipped, casting a golden light over the memorial, Sarah understood that every loss came with a call for resiliency, a call that Briarwood would answer.